Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle. I am back again today to speak about the Law of One material and share my opinions and reflections on the material. So, today we are going to be talking about how to unblock the yellow ray, which is a fancy word for it's a chakra just before the heart chakra. So basically, how do we enter the heart chakra? And then also going to be going over what it means to be perfectly balanced. Is it possible to be perfectly balanced? What does that even mean? What would it look like in another person or yourself? Okay, so this material, first of all, can be found for free. I've made a website where you can get all the links. So it's theoneinfinitecreator.com. And yeah, there's links to the LL research material where you can get all this for free. So this is the raw material, session 102.11, and we will begin. Ra says, quote, "Each entity must, in order to completely unblock yellow ray, love all which are in relationship to it, with hope only for the other self's joy, peace, and comfort." And then next, I want to add in here, session 42.4. So then the questioner says, would a perfectly balanced entity feel an emotional response when being attacked by the other self? Ra answers, Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. The response is love. Okay, so just obviously two little short ones, going to keep it a little simple at first. But you can see how, well, what do you know? The lessons are of love. These are lessons of love, lol. Here we are, and this third density has a lot of illusory material. A lot of illusions are about trying to trick us and make us feel that, the separation is true. The illusion of separation is something you should worry about, and you should, defend the self and hoard resources and all those sorts of things. But the reality is that really all of this is about love. So if we can have our focus on love and truth within love and vice versa, they're the same thing, we can be getting to the point where we are able to love everybody and able to then enter the heart chakra, which is explained in this material as the springboard to the higher chakras. So, you start at the bottom. It's like the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. You have Roy Jabiv, if you've ever heard it described that way, right? So we start at red. These are just very gross descriptions, but red would be like survival, and then orange would be like personal and your desires, sort of emotional self. The yellow would be the third one up. That is the sort of societal self, how you relate to community, the bigger you, yeah, we'll just leave it there. And then, as you are able to love everyone that you know and in relation to, you then are able to open up that yellow chakra maximally and have enough energy to make it into the heart chakra of unconditional love, love and understanding, compassion, which then, immediately you can make it to the next chakras where you express that love through the throat chakra with wisdom in the throat, in the blue. And then you go up to indigo, which is more like prayer and meditation and silence, radiance, things of this nature, which then violet is sort of the overall reading. Violet surrounds all the chakras, if you will. It's like the overall balance of the whole thing. So that's just a little prelude before we go into the more detailed stuff, just to give you a little bit of background on what I'm talking about if you're not totally privy to all this type of information. So let's just reread that again, right? So each entity must, in order to completely unblock yellow ray, love all which are in relationship to it, with hope only for the other self's joy, peace, and comfort. So just like I'm saying, maybe you are dealt with your most basic survival stuff with your red chakra, and you've sort of come to love and understand yourself, of who you are, your desires and your emotions, and love yourself, who you are in your orange chakra. You can then move up to the yellow chakra, where you love the way that you interact with society and society itself and community and family and basically your relationship to all other selves. So that would be your yellow ray. So if you are able to then basically love everybody that you know, right, in your consciousness part, that you actually know, then you can then move up into the Green Chakra, which is more like where you would sort of love things that you don't even know, right? So you have to then, that's where it gets really deep, where you have to go into the shadow. We have to now love I dare to even say the words of those types of people who are very evil, right? all those really, really terrible things. You have to find love in those things. And it's not necessarily that you accept that what they do is correct. Like I'm talking about robbers and murders and all those types of bad things, right? It's not that you are accepting of the evil. It's that you are just trying to see past the illusory husks of personality and the way that they, the lessons that these people are learning and the way that you are seeming to judge them. We sort of need to just look past those things and see that, at the heart of everyone and everything is the creator. And, it may express itself in many distorted ways, but the source of everything in the universe is love. And so, although the unconditional love, as it comes through your body and your chakras and some other people's, right, it may get very distorted, may find a lot of trouble expressing itself harmoniously, it still is love expressing itself in just very distorted fashion, of course. So it's like I say, it's not that you are necessarily loving the distortions. It's just that you're sort of loving what is underneath the distortions, which is the truth, which is the love, which is everything within that moment of the experience that you're experiencing. So you have to then remind yourself to take that all with a grain of salt, right? How are you going to be perfect? How are you honestly going to love everybody that you're in contact with? You very well may, but I would imagine that you're not some kind of yogi in that regard, as I am not either. So, they say here, would a perfectly balanced entity feel an emotional response when being attacked by the other self? Ra says, yes, this is correct. The response is love. So two kind of visions come to my head, and they're sort of the same thing. When I read that quote, I guess the way I see it physically, and then I apply this metaphorically, is sort of like a black belt master, right, getting attacked by some sort of street hooligan. So this black belt has the ability to offensively basically destroy this this hooligan if that was what they so desired, and they could do that if maybe they felt that was loving. But I would imagine the more loving thing to do would be that, as this street hooligan sort of goes to punch and attack this black belt, like you've seen in the movies, right? They just move out of the way, move to the left, move to the right, swing and a miss. Or as they say in those sorts of arts, you use the energy of that person's punch like against themselves. So instead of getting punched, you sort of just redirect the energy elsewhere where it's not hurting you, or for example. So that's kind of the way I see it. It's like metaphorically, right? Obviously, we just apply that the same way as people and are bugging you and possibly projecting their distortions upon you. You can be like that black belt that just sort of moves out of the way. I mean, and if you can't, that's okay too, because that just means that you have been triggered somewhat and beautiful. Now you have a key to something that you can now work with later in meditation and become more patient, essentially, and become more loving and more understanding than you were before, after you're able to deal with that catalyst and just see it for what it is, which is love. And then another way you could see it is like the bull, the charging bull, and at what do they call that? Is it the matador? The guy that holds the flag. Right? The guy that holds the flag and the bull charging at him, even though he's, let's just pretend that he wasn't, annoying the bull. But, you see that bull running at the guy. He's not mad at the bull. He doesn't hate the bull. He probably loves that bull. Like, he's trying to work in harmony with what he knows with nature, what that animal will do in a way. So as the bull runs at him and he's got his little flag out and whoop, moved out of the way, and he jumps out of the way and everyone's fine. It's not exactly, I guess my previous metaphor was a little better now that I'm explaining the bull thing, but it's the same idea, right? You have a charging bull come at you. You understand that although you may need to act in a defensive manner to make sure that you get to keep on living life, you may hopefully be able to see whether now or later that, that's just some entity acting out in love the way that I don't know, just people only can do what they feel is best. And even though people do a lot of terrible things, it's technically what they feel is to be best. Okay, so now I just want to elaborate on what it is to be perfectly balanced, because obviously you would want to take this information with a grain of salt. You're not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect person. However, within this next thing that I'm going to read you, you will see that there is still, what do you call it? I suppose imperfectly perfect. So there is a truth to both of these things. And this is just another way, I guess, that I use to look past the personality husk to just to see the love in people that I may have trouble finding love for. Okay? So this then is from session 38.5. And the questioner asks, questioner, quote, could you tell me how each of the rays red through violet would appear in perfectly balanced, undistorted entity? Okay, so this is me speaking just for the record. They're basically asking how would the chakras appear to if they were metaphysically viewing the chakra system, like physically were able to see it, what would it look like if that was a perfectly balanced, undistorted entity? Okay, and now Ra answers, Ra, I am Ra. We cannot tell you this, for each balance is perfect and each unique. We do not mean to be obscure. Let us offer an example. In a particular entity, let us use this instrument. They're just speaking about Carla in regards to the instrument, the person channeling. So let us use this instrument. The rays may be viewed as extremely even, red, orange, yellow. The green ray is extremely bright. This is, shall we say, balanced by a dimmer indigo. Between these 2 points of balance resides the blue ray of the communicator, sparkling in strength above the ordinary. In the violet ray, we can see this unique spectrograph, if you will, and at the same time the pure violet surrounding the whole, this in turn surrounded by that which mixes the red and violet ray, indicating that the integration of mind, body, and spirit, this surrounded in turn by the vibratory pattern of this entity's true density. Wow, that's a lot there, right? I can maybe unpack that, but it's not actually particularly important. It's just trying to explain here how, basically, this Carla herself may be a wanderer from a higher density. So just that last part is they're trying to say, this in turn is surrounded by the vibratory pattern of this entity's true density. So it's basically like the small self, surrounded by the balanced, complete self, surrounded by the red and the violet, indicating the integration of the mind, body, and spirit, and then surrounded by their sort of home density, if you will. Okay, so sorry I jumped in there. I'm going to continue with the Ra quote. This description may be seen to both be unbalanced and in perfect balance. The latter understanding is extremely helpful in dealing with other selves. The ability to feel blockages is useful only to the healer. There is not proper a tiny fraction of judgment when viewing a balance in colors. Of course, when we see many of the energy plexi weakened and blocked, we may understand that an entity has not yet grasped the baton and begun the race. However, the potentials are always there. All the rays fully balanced are there in waiting to be activated. Perhaps another way to address your query is this. In the fully potentiated entity, the rays mount one upon the other with equal vibratory brilliance and scintillating sheen until the surrounding color is white. This is what you may call potentiated balance in third density. Right, so a lot to unpack there, but not really. I will just back up a little bit to that part because this is what I was really trying to highlight the most, which they say, this description may be seen to both be unbalanced and in perfect balance. The latter understanding, meaning to see people in perfect balance, is helpful in dealing with other selves. The ability to feel blockages is useful only to the healer. There is not properly a tiny fraction of judgment when viewing balance in colors. So what they're saying here is that, like, if you metaphysically could see somebody's chakras and you could see that they're maybe sort of balance looked to be out of whack, you can't actually judge that because you don't actually know where their true balance lies. You don't know where their lessons of love are currently. What sort of, are they balancing wisdom with love? Are they balancing love with wisdom? There's usually something like this that different people incarnating will have different lessons for. right? So, although it's really easy to see all the distortions and the blockages aren't really helpful for you to even really see unless you are sort of working with that person in terms of wanting to help heal them. Um, because honestly, then all you should be really concerned with in terms of judging them is just accepting them, right? The judgment only is there for you to maybe understand yourself, right? You can reflect in judging another person of how you may be that same sort of entity and the way that you may behave similarly. But for the most part, the blockages that you're seeing in other people, it's not necessary for you to be pointing them out to them unless you're seeking to serve them and to assist in healing with them. And obviously, the most important part being of that they ask for your assistance, because free will is number one and all that. And, you need to sort of work within the limits of free will and do when asked. That is sort of the nature of this spiritual path. So I guess that's it. In my I have a couple of pages that I run. I do this Synchronicity 1111 page where I talk a lot of crap on the government and stuff, but I like to write spiritual things of, well, I just want to be authentic. I just want to be who I am over on that page. So you get to get a little bit of like politics, a bit of everything of who I am. And I wrote this little bit today, which was more on a loving sort of note. And it was on this same category, which sparked me wanting to record this podcast. What I said at the very end was, so in the face of all sorts of seeming division, remember that the Creator is all. The illusory husks of personality are persuasive in tempting you to act out in separation. But if your focus on truth and love is centered, you will recognize the love in the moment and eventually all experiences. And that is what I said, and that is what I just repeated here. So thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate all of your love and support. Thank you for checking out my new shop. I got a couple of orders, and yeah, it feels good to even just have a couple of shirts out there. And you better believe that if I ever see you on the street wearing that shirt, I'm gonna give you a big hug. Although I'm sure it's very rare that we'll actually run into each other. But anyways, thank you guys for supporting. I love interacting with all of you and hearing all your comments and reflections on these podcasts. You know where to find the links, theoneinfinitecreator.com. If you appreciate this information, please give it a like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. It always gives me things to ponder over so I can then have more material to talk about in the future with these podcasts, and to also just post on Instagram. You may think that you are just small and you don't have a lot of effect in the universe, but it's funny how just a very small question sometimes to me will cause me to reflect on what you've asked me, and then record some kind of long podcast like this and make a post out on that Instagram page, and maybe 30,000 people or something will see a post or some words that were inspired by a question that you had left, or just something that is born within you. So anyways, I just want to remind you all that the little things you do matter, and I appreciate all the little things you do to support me in this page and my journey, and I hope that you are able to gain something from this as well, as that was what I intend to do with this, is to serve you and to have an outlet to express myself authentically and honestly and lovingly, and what's that word? Vulnerably. Okay, thanks guys. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. Have a good rest of the week.